Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. Welcome to The Horizon, the voice of the Amber woman. My name is Dr. Patience Abiedu, and today I am the only person on this program, so it's going to be a solo commentary. I hope you are going to stay the whole program and listen to what I have to say. As usual, I start the program by extending greetings to our ASA, Ambazonian State Army, who are defending our freedom, who are protecting our people, who are defending our rights. I also like to greet and appreciate our brothers and sisters who are residing in neighboring La République du Cameroon, most of them probably in Douala and Yaoundé, and inform them that we are praying for that day that they will return home and help build Ambazonia, Southern Cameroons. I also want to extend greetings to those of our brothers and sisters, Southern Cameroonians, Ambazonians, all over the diaspora, that you are in a unique place and you're acquiring a wealth of knowledge, and that one day it's going to be your turn to return home and build your country. With that said, I am today in the eve of September 22nd. I know today is the 19th. We have a couple more days before it's September 22nd, but we will not have the possibility of having a program on that day. So I want to use this opportunity to tell everyone, particularly mothers and youth, that there's a reason we are here at this time in history. There's a reason God has placed us here at this time in history. And I know that we've lost so many young, vibrant souls because of a war that was declared on us by Paul Biya in November of 2017. With that said, I want us to reflect on why it is the right thing to do. Honorable Wilbur did say that when resistance is pervasive, then we have to fight. It's a duty for us to fight, and that's what we are doing here today. So we're going to start the program by sharing some audios or some videos that we've heard. Some of you may have listened to them, some may not have, but I want to use this opportunity to expound on them because it touches the core. It really speaks to our youth. It speaks to our mothers, because you are really the backbone of the nation. I'm not saying that our men are not important. I'm saying that in La République du Cameroon, in Ambazonia, the youth and the mothers are really the foundation of the family. In 1981, I went ahead and docked this African Charter on Human and People's Rights. And if you go through that document, it was adopted on the 27th of July, 1981, several years ago, and then also entered in force in October 1986. It talks about our rights as human beings. It talks about our rights as human beings. And there's one section that I want to read before I usher in the first audio or video. It says that conscious of their duty to achieve the total liberation of Africa, the peoples of which are still struggling for their dignity and genuine independence, and undertaking to eliminate colonialism, neo-colonialism, apartheid, Zionism, and to dismantle aggressive foreign military bases and all forms of discrimination, particularly those based on race, ethnic groups, color, sex, language, religion, and political opinions. Reaffirming their adherence to the of Human and People's Rights and Freedom contained in the Declaration, conventions, and other instruments adopted by the Organization of African Unity, the Movement of Non-Aligned Countries, and the United Nations, firmly convenes of their duty to promote and protect human and people's rights and freedoms, taking into account the importance traditionally attached to these rights and freedoms in Africa. They have declared all those articles, which I'm going to read some of today. I bring this to say that this fight for freedom goes way back. It goes way back. And as a young in Boya, and then later on going to primary school, secondary school, high school, and those of my generation, we see things differently. I sometimes empathize with the youth of today because they don't know any better. Those who are considered youth have seen only one person as president in Southern Cameroons, in La République du Cameroon. They know only of Paul Biya. And this talk that I want to talk today really evolves around everything that has happened in our community. We grew up as a free people. I remember going to primary school. We walked freely on the streets. The streets were cleaned. As a child, you can really go to the hospital and you'll be taken care of without your parent being there, because it happened to me. As a child, I swallowed a pebble, the thing that we used to play on the streets, and I was afraid to go home to tell my mom what had happened. So I walked myself to the hospital in Boya, and I was probably less than 8 years old. I walked myself to the hospital. That's how peaceful the place was. People took other people's kids as their children and took care of them. So I'm saying this, that we want to go back to those times where children would be free to walk the streets, to play in the streets freely, not being afraid of bullets or being picked up and raped by the military. So these are trying times. But let's go ahead and start the first. I'm also going to usher the first video. Let me see what it is, because I have them in chronological order. So the first one that's going to speak to us today, and I want to first of all appreciate Dr. Mungwa for all these videos or audios on truth and truth in, I'm not sure how he puts it, but truth in resistance, clarity in crisis, because he's giving us some clarity during this time of crisis. So I want to usher the first audio or video from Nepal to Cameroon, the Gen Z Spring. This is when I want to talk to the youth that may be the youth living in La République du Cameroon, or our youth in Southern Cameroon's Ambazonian. This is your message. So if you can listen to that first video from Nepal to Cameroon, the Gen Z Spring, please.
This is the voice of Ambazonia. Truth in resistance, clarity in crisis. Today is Wednesday, September 17th, 2025. Today's editorial is titled From Nepal to Cameroon, the Gen Z Spring. Earlier this year, thousands of young people in Nepal defied curfews, barricades, and intimidation. Armed with smartphones, courage, and a sense of betrayed futures, they poured into the streets and shook the political order of Kathmandu. Observers quickly called it the Gen Z Spring. It was not the old opposition parties or the trade unions. It was the restless youth demanding accountability, declaring that silence was over. Nepal may feel distant, but its lesson speaks directly to Africa. The same ingredients that drove its youth to rise are present across our continent, and in Cameroon, they exist in even more explosive proportions. Nepal's revolt was born from four forces: climate fragility, where erratic rains and floods wrecked farms; corruption, with scandals in government contracts; bad governance, with old politicians recycling themselves endlessly; and crushing unemployment, where nearly half of graduates found no work. For Nepali youth, the future was stolen, and they decided to take it back. Now, consider Cameroon. We too have climate shocks: drought in the north, floods in the south, farms destroyed, families forced into migration. We too have corruption, not as an accident, but as a system. From ghost workers to billions embezzled, corruption is the way the state is run. We too have bad governance, but our borders on the absurd. Paul Biya has ruled for 42 years, and nearly 92, he is rarely seen in public, yet his portrait decorates every office. Imagine a country being asked to vote for the photograph, a picture candidate. Meanwhile, institutions are hollow shells. Parliament, judiciary, and electoral commissions exist in name only. The economy stagnates despite oil and timber. Degrees open no doors, forcing graduates to drive taxis or hustle in the streets. Add to this the bloody conflict in the Anglophone regions, with hundreds of thousands displaced, and you see a generation already betrayed. The possibility of ruling by portrait could become the trigger for revolt. In Nepal, corruption and joblessness were the sparks. In Cameroon, the insult of being governed by a picture could set off an explosion. For Gen Z Cameroonians raised on TikTok and Twitter, it may be the final straw. Cameroon's youth are not passive. They flood social media with satire. They have watched Nigerian youth march under NSARS, Sudanese youth topple, Omar el-Bashir, Ugandan youth resist, Yoweri Museveni. They are striking in universities, resisting harassment in markets, emigrating in large numbers, and sustaining activism through the diaspora. Their anger is real. What they lack is not will, only the spark. Africa's youth are the youngest in the world. The median age of the continent is just 19. More than 60% of Africa's 1.4 billion people are under 25, while power remains monopolized by rulers who measure their reigns in decades. Nepal's uprising in a country of 30 million sent ripples across Asia. Imagine the scale when African youth rise. Cameroon could be the epicenter. It combines every condition: an aging autocrat, failed institutions, entrenched corruption, economic despair, climate crisis, and a digital generation too informed to be fooled. Unlike other states that rotate leaders or pretend reform, Cameroon has calcified into absurdity. The idea of a picture president could be the straw that breaks the camel's back. Across Africa, leaders should take heed. Nepal was not an anomaly. It was a warning shot. The youth are no longer patient. In Cameroon, frustration is visible, betrayal is total, and the anger grows daily. If elections are stolen again, if corruption continues unchecked, if the state insists that portraits can govern people, then Cameroon may ignite, and when it does, the fire may not stop at its borders. Dr. Samuel Komisako, President of the Federal Republic of Southern Cameroon in exile, has long warned that when Yaoundé implodes, Ambazonian offers the stable and credible alternative. His call is not only partisan, it is a roadmap for the Gulf of Guinea, where international actors will need reliable partners when the old system collapses. The lesson from Nepal is simple. When a generation has nothing left to lose, it will rise. And when Africa's Gen Z rises, it will shake the continent. The question before Cameroon's rulers and before the world is whether to prepare for that reckoning or continue the dangerous pretense that portraits can govern people. This has been the voice of Ambazonia, truth in resistance, clarity in crisis.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mungwa, for that. Let's delve into this a little bit more detailing. The question to ask is that what is the difference between the youth that are in La République du Cameroon, the youth that are in southern Cameroon's Ambazonia, from the youth in Nepal? So that's a rhetoric question. I'm asking you guys who are listening. The reason I'm asking that question is because in every part of the world, the youth are the foundation, are the future, rather. They are the future. If you don't have your country vested in the, then the future of that country will be dismal. If you don't have any nation where the youth have the best education, where they feel secure and safe, where they are happy, then the likelihood that you are raising adults who in the future will be destructive to your country is very great. So, why in southern Cameroons, in La République du Cameroon, where you find a similar situation where the youth have no access to great education, where those who have completed even up to university education are jobless, walking the streets, driving taxis or selling puff puff along the streets, or looking for mediocre job they from week to week or month to month, and no real future. How do you expect them to plan to build a family that sustains a community? Because without that foundation, it's a recipe for disaster for that nation. So why did the youth from Nepal, the Gen Z youth, decide to rise and demand what is rightfully theirs? What makes youth from an environment able to seek what is rightfully theirs? Why are the youth in La République du Cameroon comfortable with the status quo, where you have even the fact that the president, the current president, is 92 years old, is still running for office and hasn't done anything that could be stamped as something good for the youth of that nation? Well, the youths that are Ambazonians, their hands are tied. Their hands are tied because I can see that if they were to rise to demand their freedom, they will be mowed down, just like it happened on September 22nd, 2017 and October 1st, 2017, when the people came out and walked the streets. On September 22nd, 2017, the people declared that they did not want La République to occupy their territory any longer. You had youths, you had mothers, you had everybody from every walk of life on the streets. That was a revolution. On October 1st, all over the world, the restoration of our statehood. That was another revolution. So it's been 7, 8 years since that, La Republique is still in our territory. La Republique has mowed down our villages, sending our people out of the country as refugees, most of them in Nigeria, some in Ghana and other parts of Africa, and some have even traversed through dangerous territory to South America and finally to the United States of America. If things were so great in that country, then the youth will be secure. They will not see any reason to leave their homeland to secure brighter pastures. There will be no need for that. Also, we realize that in 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, those first 4 years, although it's still happening now, there were lots of mass graves. We have a lot of our young Southern Cameroonians, Ambazonians that have been buried in mass graves, both in Southern Cameroon's Ambazonia and some taken all over to La Republique du Cameroon. They've disappeared, just gone. Thus, just gone like that. You know, I want to read this section from what we just listened to from Dr. Mungwa. He said, now consider Cameroon. Okay, let me go back. He talked about Nepal's. Nepal's revolt was born from 4 forces: climate fragility, where erratic rains and floods wrecked farms. We have no control over our weather in Southern Cameroon or La Republique du Cameroon. That is God's doing. But as a government, we should have the way of mitigating the consequences of bad weather. Corruption with scandals in government contracts. Bad governance with all politicians recycling and crushing unemployment, when nearly half graduates found no work. For Nepal youth, the future was stolen and they decided to take it back. That's what happened there. But listen to the reasons why. They're talking about climate fragility, talking about corruption and scandals in government contracts. There is corruption in La Republique du Cameroon, and this, I think, La Republique du Cameroon is considered one of the most corrupt nations in the world. There's bad governance with all politicians recycling themselves. The same thing applies to La Republique du Cameroon. There's vast unemployment. It says where half graduates found no work. In La Republique du Cameroon, more than half of our youth have found no work. So I just related to that, but in details, let me come back to what Dr. Mungwa said about Cameroon. Now consider Cameroon. We too have climate shocks, drought in the north, floods in the south, farm destroyed, families forced into migration. But those problems, as I said, those are natural problems. Those are not man-made problems. But a good government will have the means in place to have solutions for its people. We too have corruption, not as an accident, but as a system. From ghost workers to billions embezzled, corruption is the way the state is run. We too have bad governance, but ours borders on the absurd. Paul Biya has ruled for 42 years, and now nearly 92, he is rarely seen in public. Yet his portrait decorates every office. Imagine a country being photographed, a picture candidate. So the question is, why do the people accept this? Is it because they're just comfortable? Is it because, as we expressed before, they have their bread and sardine today, and only today matters? They don't think about tomorrow. They don't think about the future. How do you think the country will look like in 20, 30, 40 years from now if you have a youth population that is not developed? We don't want that for Southern Commons. We don't want that for Ambazonia. That is why Southern Cameroonian Ambazonia's youth must not take part in any political charade called elections that are coming up on October 12th. Let me read some more about what Dr. Mungwa said. He says, across Africa, leaders should take heed. Nepal was not an anomaly, pardon me. It was a warning shot. The youth are no longer patient. In Cameroon, frustration is visible, betrayal is total, and the anger grows daily. If elections are stolen again, if corruption continues unchecked, if the state insists that portraits can govern people, then Cameroon may ignite. And when it does, the fire may not stop at its border. You know, before the Bamileke War, Southern Cameroon was minding its own business, trying to take care of its people. And then the Bamileke War came, and people had to flee La République du Cameroun and settle in Southern Cameroon. Is this something that may happen again? We don't know. We don't know. But the point I'm trying to make as a mother, speaking to the youth, that the future is yours. The future is yours, not ours. If you don't do the right things that make you have control over your future, over your destiny, then you remain a second-class citizen. You remain unemployed. You will not live to your potential because you don't have the possibilities of living the best life that you can. How do you plan to have a wife or a husband and raise children in that type of environment? How do you think your communities will thrive when the foundation is so weak? So, I want to speak to our mothers, the mothers of the youth. I know you too are suffering. No parent wants their child not to be better than they, the parents. You always want your child to success and do more beyond what you have done in life. But I think what I know is that in most homes in both La République du Cameroun and in Southern Cameroon's Ambazonia, the parents are the one taking care of the youth because the youth have the possibilities very, very minimal to grow, to outshine, to plan, to see a brighter future. So the mothers and the women and the sisters that you're seeing your sons, your nephews, your nieces lacking the means to progress, what do you tell them? How do you support them? Do you encourage them to fight for their future? Do you encourage them to just sit home and do nothing? Do you encourage them to be visionary? Because only you can determine your future. Of course, God is a master planner, but you can decide what path you want to take and pray that it aligns with God's plans for you. So whatever happened in Nepal can happen in La République du Cameroon. But Ambazonian kids know that. You have a government that is working for you. You have a government, although we are in exile, and you are there in La Republic, you are there in Ambazonia, Southern Cameroon, you may be staying in another part of the world, but the potential that you will have once we have the total control of our land is enormous. You have the chance to grow. You have the chance to educate, to get the best education. You have the chance to thrive. And know that you're doing that to build a nation where your children and grandchildren will have a better future than you had. So I'm going to also ask now for us to get to the next video or audio, because they're all related material. As I'm having my one-man commentary today. And the reason I chose today to do this is because I want to respect that September 22nd, which is coming. It's a day that we all, everybody, believed in Southern Cameroons, believed in Ambazonia. We've lost some people on the wayside for one reason or the other, but deep in their souls, they know that they are better off in a country called Southern Cameroons La Republique, than Southern Cameroons Ambazonia, than being part of La République du Cameroun. Because as part of La République du Cameroun, you're special status citizens. Special status citizens. And by definition, you have no future. So, the next video I would like for us to listen to and talk about is, give me a moment. The number 2 video, I don't have the name yet, but I think the producers know the video I'm talking about. I can't really remember the exact name, the title, but go just the second video, please. My cell phone is...
This is the voice of Ambazonia. Truth in resistance, clarity in crisis. Today is Wednesday, September 17th, 2025. Today's editorial is titled, Why We Fight, the Betrayal of the Southern Cameroons. Fellow Ambazonians, in the early 1960s, the people of the British Southern Cameroons stood at the door of independence. The United Nations, through Resolution 1608 of April 21st, 1961, declared that our land was ready for self-rule. Britain, the Republic of Cameroon, and our own leaders were asked to agree on the terms of a union before October 1st, 1961. At that moment, President Amadou Ahidjo of La République du Cameroun made solemn promises before the world that any union would be federal, not annexation, that the Southern Cameroons will keep its parliament, courts, and administration, that our cultural and linguistic identity would be respected, and that unity would never be imposed by force. Our leaders believed him. After all, who would doubt a statesman making such assurances before the United Nations and the international community? But history tells us otherwise. On February 11th, 1961, our people voted in a UN plebiscite to join Cameroon rather than Nigeria. Independence, though guaranteed by international law, was denied as an option. We trusted Ahidjo's pledges, yet in 1972, federalism was abolished by referendum and our autonomy dismantled. From that day forward, the Southern Cameroon ceased to exist as a state, reduced to provinces under Yaoundé's control. Since then, every peaceful call for justice has been met with repression, bullets, and blood. The gap between promises and reality has become a wound that refuses to heal. Let the record be clear. The documents remain in the United Nations archives. Ahidjo's words are still there. What was promised was autonomy, dignity, and equality. What we received was annexation, assimilation, and war. That is why we fight. Not out of hatred, but out of memory. Not against peace, but for a peace based on truth and justice. Message from President Dr. Samuel Ikomisako, President of the Federal Republic of Southern Cameroon's Ambazonian in exile. Fellow Ambazonians, our struggle is not a struggle of destruction, but of restoration. The world has in its archives the very promises made to us in 1961. These documents bear witness that we entered this union in good faith, and it is that faith that was betrayed. We do not seek revenge, we seek justice. We do not seek domination, we seek freedom. And we will never tire until the dignity of the Southern Cameroons is restored and our children can live in peace and equality among nations. Remain steadfast, remain united. The truth is on our side and history will vindicate us. This has been the voice of Ambazonia, truth in resistance, clarity in crisis.
Yes, so that video we just listened to, Why We Fight the Betrayal of the Southern Cameroons, also speaks to the youth. It speaks to the youth, and it also gives the foundation of probably what I spoke previously. It is true that the youth, most of them, do not know this history. They don't know the promises that were made by Ahidjo. They don't even know who Ahidjo is. They know only about Paul Biya. But our history is so important. You have to go back to history and compare two things. And I was a young person at one time. So we were youth in our own days, and we had better times. We had better times when Southern Cameroons was based in Buea, when we had our own government. This history that the government of Southern Cameroon started in Enugu and left Enugu in 1954 with their base in Buea. It's an important history. It tells you that our forefathers were visionary. They already started ruling a nation. The fact that the belief in Ahidjo, let me read that section so that it really settles in your memories. It says, in the early 1960s, the people of the British Southern Cameroons was at the door of independence, right? But because we're given that option through the plebiscite to either join Nigeria or La République du Cameroun, and we chose to join La République du Cameroun, that had already had its own independence on January 1st, 1960, and by that union, as a federal union, on October 1st, 1961, we were equals. So La République du Cameroon and the former British Southern Cameroons now became East Cameroon and West Cameroon in October 1st, 1961. So how did it happen that that federation just disappeared? It must have been manipulation from the beginning. That was their intention from the very beginning. We were trustworthy people. I've told you that the Southern Cameroonians, we have a different cultural origin. Traditionally, the British person is very honest, unlike the Frenchman, pardon me. And we took their word as a gentleman. We took the word of Ahidjo. So at the moment, President Amadou Ahidjo of La République du Cameroun made solemn promises before the war that any union would be federal, not annexation, that the Southern Cameroons would keep its parliament, quotes, and administration, and that our cultural and linguistic identity would be respected, and that unity would never be imposed by force. But you see, those of us who are 60, 70, 80, and perhaps some 50 years old, realize how Southern Cameroons, Southern Cameroons, Ambazonia has deteriorated over time. Because we know what we had before. We know all the institutions that we had. They ought to have gotten better, not disappeared. And La République, Ahidjo, then Biya, the intention was assimilation, which he clearly said at the Paris Climate Conference, that they tried to bring us, make us one with them, but they failed. Of course, they failed. You cannot mix an oil and water and expect it to stay the same. No. So, when the teachers and lawyers went on the strike in September and October of 2016, this is just like how many decades, because mind you that before the teachers and lawyers went on the strike that year, some of our fathers in the 1990s, even in the 1980s, had already seen the manipulation by La République du Cameroun. And we're already fighting for us to go back to the federal system. They were willing to go back to the federal system. But La République didn't see that as a possibility. They said, hell no, you will be our slaves. You are cockroaches, you are roaches. This is a message for our youth, because that's how you're considered. If your parents and your grandparents are considered cockroaches and roaches, then you are also a cockroach and a roach. You have no future. You will be crushed. What do you do to cockroaches and roaches? You just step on them, step on it. You'll be crushed with no future. So, I was saying that when the teachers and lawyers went on the strike, they were just demanding simple things. So just let our legal system be. We have the common law system where you're innocent until proven guilty in the laws, in the courts. We have our educational system where you have your English teachers teach our kids in English. You don't have them imposing French teachers to come into your classroom and teach your kids strange language called their own English. Or sometimes teach your kids in French in disciplines that they cannot master, like the sciences, because they don't understand, like happening in universities. The fact is, with a poor foundation in education, you don't have for a bright future. Education is the key. Yeah, there are some people that have succeeded in life without going to traditional schools, but those are very few. The majority of people have to have traditional education, learn the basics, go further and specialize, and master the material to make a living. Living in La République du Cameroon, that possibility is crushed. So, in Dr. Mungwa's expose, he says, on February 11, 1961, our people voted in the UN plebiscite to join Cameroon rather than Nigeria. Independence through, though guaranteed by international law, was denied as an option. We trusted the pledges. Yet in 1972, federalism was abolished by a referendum and our autonomy dismantled. From that day forward, the Southern Cameroon ceased to exist as a nation, reduced to provinces under Yaoundé's control. And something that you should know, there was nothing like Northwest and Southwest before then. That was also part of the manipulation. Divide and conquer. When our people left Nigeria, Enugu, and settled in Boya in the late 50s, early 60s, we had divisions. Victoria Division, Camber Division, Bamenda Division, and those were just for administrative purposes. But when you come now and divide people as Southwest and Northwest, and later on as all the provinces that they had, with somebody, Ahijo, on the top, making all the decisions, then fathers and forefathers had no voice. And then how could our youth, the current youth today, how will you have a voice? It says, let the record be clear. The documents in the United Nations archives are still there, pardon me. What was promised was autonomy, dignity, and equality. What we received was annexation, assimilation, and now war. The annexation and assimilation and the word that we've been using along, marginalization, which we don't really need to use because it's really minuscule. The annexation and assimilation, we fought against that on September 22nd and October 1st. And because we fought and resisted, war came upon us. This war has created us to lose our young men and women. A lot of families have lost young people because of the war. That shouldn't have been the case. You know, all BIA had to do when the teachers and lawyers went on a strike, and I've said this on numerous occasions, all he had to do was listen to their demands. Can you imagine if Paul Biya had said, okay, we'll let you have your common law, we'll not have French magistrates and judges in your courts so that you can have your people be able to hear what they are charged against in English and be able to defend themselves. Will not contaminate your schools with our French speaking teachers. Will let you have all your English teachers. Had that been the case, I seriously doubt that there would have been a September 22nd and an October 1st, 2017. I seriously doubt that. Of course, our people, for the past few years, there are some key elements that have maintained that we're better off staying as our own nation. That I don't deny. That I don't deny. But the realization that these people never want us to be their equal became evident after that. So if you're somewhere that you're not considered as equal or even up to par with some other person, why do you want to live with them? Because you will always be inferior. And as someone who's inferior, your chances of advancing in life are minimal. So our people, our young people, this is telling you that you may not have known the history of where your forefathers, grandfathers, great-grandfathers came from. It's there in the history books. Read, educate yourself, and know that there's a reason why Ambazonia exists today. I mean, the name used to be Southern Commons until one of our forefathers coined the name Ambazonia. There's a reason for that. It's really for the future, for our kids to have a better future, not for us. So let me read this final paragraph before we go to the next video. It says, our struggle is not a struggle of destruction, but of restoration. This is very important. It's a struggle for restoration. Mind you, there are some criminals taking advantage of this, and some of our youth may have gotten involved in this because they don't have a future. They see it as a means of making an easy buck. Although deep in their gut, they know they are doing the wrong thing. But our struggle is one for restoration, not for destruction. Majority of Southern Cameroonians, majority of Ambazonians know that. Regardless of if you've been a victim of kidnapping for ransom, if you've lost family members here and there, deep down in your core, you know that you're better off. Your people are better off. The future for your children and grandchildren will be brighter if Southern Cameroons, Ambazonia, is fully restored and we have total control of our territory. The world has in its archives the very promises made to us in 1961. These documents bear witness that we entered this union in good faith. And it is that faith that was betrayed by Ehijo and France. We say this knowing that the mastermind behind this is France. We know that. The mastermind behind this is France. France is an enemy to Africa. France is an enemy to La République du Cameroon. France is an enemy to Amazonia. But they have the means to make things right. If France comes today and tells Biya that, you know what, let us have peace in both La République du Cameroon and Southern Cameroons. Let the people have their nation. They have their boundary already. They have their flag. They have their people. They have their anthem. They have a government. Let them run their affairs. And you, La République du Cameroon, run your affairs. Let's find a way to trade with both of you. That is France. Trade with both La République du Cameroon and Southern Cameroon's Ambazonian in a fair manner. Then all three nations will thrive. But at the pace that France is going, their demise is imminent. If they are thinking only of the now and not thinking of their future, their demise is imminent, because you cannot keep on beating a horse and beating a horse and beating a horse, and one day that horse will not rebel. Or if you beat a horse till the horse dies, then you're going to die too. If that horse was your means to go from one point to the other, you will be trapped. So let me read this final paragraph I was reading and I stopped in the middle. The world has in its archives the very promises made to us in 1961. These documents bear witness that we entered this union in good faith, and it is that faith that was betrayed. We do not say seek revenge. We seek justice. We do not seek domination. We seek freedom. And we will never tire until the dignity of Southern Cameroons is restored and our children can live in peace and equality among nations. I started this program today by talking about the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. If you have a means to go read that document, please read it. It has a lot of information about the rights of everyone. I'm focusing on Africa because, of course, we have the United Nations rights for children, human rights. They're all there. They're all similar. So, as our youth, please take time to educate yourself on this information, because knowledge is power. Perhaps you will then understand why this journey is very important. With that said, we're going to go to the very last video, which is titled Cameroon Eternal Youth When 92 is a New 22. And after that, I will say a couple of words. If anybody wants to make a phone call to give any more information, please feel free to dial the number 310-339-9365. I will take your call and you can go on air and comment and give any additional information you'd like for us to hear. But at this moment, we're going to listen to the last video and comment on it and end the program for today.
This is the voice of Ambazonian. Truth in resistance, clarity in crisis. Today is Friday, September 12, 2025. Today's editorial is titled Cameroon's Eternal Youth When 92 is the New 22. In Biya's Cameroon, words have lost their meaning. Nowhere is this clearer than in the regime's abuse of the word youth. Across the world, youth is simple. The United Nations says 15 to 24. The African Union says 15 to 35. The World Health Organization agrees. Youth ends well before middle age. But in Cameroon, under Biya, youth has become a label slapped on anyone the colonial regime wants to recycle. Even men in their 60s, 70s, and yes, even their 80s. It would be laughable if it were not so tragic. Jacques Famendongo, colonial minister of higher education, is in his late 70s and still calls himself a champion of youth, while students face beatings and broken classrooms. Oben Peter Ashu, a loyal colonial CBD baron, attended colonial youth congresses in his 60s, hailed as part of the younger generation. Nchime Avuna, long past retirement, sat comfortably on colonial panels about youth and leadership. Even the colonial CPDM's so-called youth wing has been led for decades by men in their 50s and 60s. Recycled faces pretending to be the future. The absurdity has reached its peak. Philemon Yang, nearly 80, is paraded as a youthful option to represent Ambazonians in the next colonial government. He stands shoulder to shoulder with Paul Biya himself, 92 years old, and yet another septuagenarian youth. When 92 becomes the face of youth, what chance do genuine young people have? Defenders of the regime claim Cameroon uses youth in a cultural sense, meaning those not yet at the very top of leadership. They argue that experience plus youthful spirit can still serve the nation. But this collapses when 92-year-olds are paraded as the future. Experience without renewal is not leadership, it is stagnation dressed up as succession. And all of this is part of a broader French strategy embedded in Biya's doctrine of communal liberalism, an ideology designed not for unity, but to stifle dissent. By stretching definitions, blurring language, and promoting docility, the colonial population is kept weary, confused, and obedient. The abuse of youth is just one more way of denying Cameroonians their rightful turn at leadership. This is not clumsiness, it is a weapon. By calling old men youth, the colonial regime blocks real generational change. Young Cameroonians in their 20s and 30s are told to wait their turn, but their turn never comes. The result is endless recycling of colonial cronies. Loyalty is rewarded, renewal is a lie, hope becomes a mirage. Leadership is trapped in a grotesque cycle of eternal adolescence. And the damage is deep. If an 80-year-old can be called youth, then time itself loses meaning. The future is always postponed. Leadership is permanently deferred. Citizens are conditioned to accept stagnation as destiny. The manipulation fits a wider pattern. Colonial dialogues that resolve nothing. Colonial decentralization that never devolves power. Promises of colonial national unity that deepen division. In Cameroon, words do not build, they suffocate. The cost is visible. Brain drain as talented youth flee abroad in search of futures denied at home. Disillusionment as those who remain discover that merit means nothing, while loyalty to the colonial clique means everything. Frozen politics with the same slogans, the same failures, the same old men recycled decade after decade under the mask of youth. Dr. Samuel Ikomisako, President of the Federal Republic of Ambazonian in exile, has said it clearly. This is not just a Cameroonian problem. It is the legacy of Charles de Gaulle's imperial presidency, exported to Francophone Africa at independence. That model of colonial presidential monarchy and eternal father figures became the cornerstone of France-Afrique. Strong men, propped up by Paris, ruled indefinitely while real renewal was crushed. But today, the seams of France-Afrique are cracking. From the Sahel to Central Africa, peoples are rising against the system of control. For Dr. Sako, a free Ambazonia must reject this inheritance. It must dismantle Biya's colonial communal liberalism, break the chains of France-Afrique, and build a political order rooted in federalism, renewal, and true democracy. It means restoring words to their true meaning, youth to the young, leadership to the capable, sovereignty to the people. A 92-year-old cannot be the future. A 70-year-old cannot be the face of youth. And a government that insists otherwise claim to be honest with its people. Behind the joke lies a strategy. Behind a strategy lies the theft of an entire generation's future. This has been today's editorial. This is the voice of Ambazonia, truth in resistance, clarity in crisis.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mungwe. This audios are very, very educational, and I hope our youth have the opportunity to listen to them. And this takes me back to um, the when Empire Day was changed to Youth Day. You know, we used to separate 11 February as Empire Day, and La République du Cameroon decided to change it to Youth Day, giving this significance to it as something so important. Meanwhile, as we've listened to this audio, who is a youth, and what how our youth faring in La République du Cameroon? What future do they have under the current leadership? It was appalling that despite the fact we don't see Biya around as a president should be, you don't see him on going from maybe from one town to the other town to visit his people. You don't see that. Yet you had some youth parading his picture and endorsing him for president again. I mean, I can understand those CPDM loyalists that are in the same, what do you call it, medicine house, if you will, that believe in, I don't know how their brains are wired, but you can appreciate if they are the ones parading Bia's picture. But why will you have young people parading his picture and endorsing him to be president again? It makes no sense. It's mind-boggling, and these are young people that have not had any opportunities to grow. They are living with their parents, most of them. They are probably doing some criminal activities to raise funds for themselves. They may be also engaged in this mindset of taking what doesn't belong to them, stealing, if you will. They may be involved in doing those 411 businesses that they have, which are very prevalent in Nigeria, also in La République du Cameroon and Cameroon, because they've not been given the opportunities to secure a great education and grow from there and have a plan of how to end up in a profession that is comfortable enough for them to raise families. Now we have people that are in their 70s, 80s, and 90s, starting from 60s, heading all these government positions. And one thing we would like to make clear as Southern Cameroonians, Ambazonians, is that a nation that thrives makes it possible for the private sector to flourish. If you don't have a flourishing private sector that is possible, that gives people means of earning a living, could be private sector for transportation, private sector for healthcare, private sector for all forms of engineering, technology, water and power, although water and power sometimes can be the right of the government, but you have water and power that are also private entities to build competition. If you don't have a country that has those flourishing private businesses in a with high standards, that country, the people always look only to the government. And if you have a government that is so corrupt that only those at the top benefit, then there's no expectations that the youth will have a promising future. It's just that obvious. Doesn't require a lot of information to know that that is basically what the case will be. You don't need to be a rocket scientist to make that conclusion. So this last audio that we just listened to, there's a paragraph that I want to read because it really highlights, it speaks to the depth of what our people are experiencing. Says it would be laughable if it were not so tragic. Jacques Fem Ndongo, colonial minister of higher education, is in his late 70s and still calls himself the champion of youth, while students face beatings and broken classrooms. Omen Peter Ashu, a lawyer, colonial CPDM baron, attended colonial youth congresses in his 60s, hailed as part of the younger generation. Simi Ovonia, long past retirement, sat comfortably on colonial panels about youth and leadership. Even the colonial CPDM's so-called youth wing has been led for decades by men in their 50s and 60s, recycling faces pretending to be the future. Now, let me get this straight. I don't have any problem, or we should not have any problem with people that are in their 50s and 60s and 70s that are still energetic and have the wherewithal, have the stamina, have the knowledge to make things better for their communities. But if you do that at the detriment of youth, where you don't give the youth opportunities to grow and build, then that's building a nation that in future there will be a crisis where, because the youths were never developed, a crisis where those youth in the future will have very limited means of growing, and so they may only resort to criminal activities to survive. I read on. The absurdity has reached its peak. Philomene Yang, nearly 80, is paraded as a youthful option to represent Ambazonians in the next colonial government. He stands shoulder to shoulder with Paul Biya himself, nearly 92 years old, and yet another septuagenarian youth. When 92 becomes the face of the youth, what chance do genuine youth people have? And that's a question that we are asking. Well, that's a question. So with that said, what do you as youth today do about this? Because you have the power, just like the kids in Nepal took upon themselves to make their voices heard. You're the Gen Z generation. You have means of doing things that we, your parents and grandparents, did not have the opportunity to do. I read on. The damage is deep. If an 80-year-old can be called youth, then time itself loses meaning. The future is always postponed. Leadership is permanently deferred. Citizens are conditioned to accept stagnation as destiny. The manipulation fits a wider pattern: colonial dialogues that resolve nothing, colonial decentralization that never develops power, promises of colonial national unity that deepen division. In Cameroon, words do not build, they suffocate. Our youth are suffocating. The cause is visible. You have brain drain as talented youth flee abroad in search of futures denied at home. Disillusionment as those who remain discover that merit means nothing. Without loyalty to the colonial clique means everything. While loyalty to the colonial clique means everything. Frozen politics with the same slogans, the same failures, the same old men recycled decade under the mask of youth. Let me say this about brain drain. Most of us who were born in the 60s and 70s and 60s, 50s, 40s, perhaps even 70s. When we left Southern Cameroon, left Ambazonia to go abroad, the goal was to go back home and build. Most of the people that left at that time were not living to live for good. Their goal was to go get the best education possible and come back. Over the years, some of them have gone back. A few have succeeded in what they're doing, but majority were frustrated by the system. You had these youthful people. They came with energy and vigor to do great things for the nation. But because of the way La Republique is wired, where there is so much corruption right from the top, these young people with so much ambition and drive were frustrated, and some of them had to go back. They had to return. This brain drain continues till today. But we're saying that the youth of Ambazonia, the youth that are Southern Cameroonians, Ambazonians, there's a brighter future for you, because when we have complete control of our territory, and it's not a matter of if, it's when, because no country, no nation fights for its right indefinitely. Eventually, you have control of that territory. And the youth will be important to build it, to be a nation that shines, that respects all the elder people and respects the youth, that has opportunities for everybody. We'll have what we will call brain gain. Not brain drain, but brain gain, where all these young people that have left because they had no opportunity for themselves will come back home and rebuild the best nation in Africa. I mean, look at Rwanda. Rwanda was a nation that was infested with genocide. Let's not forget the Rwanda genocide. But look at the nation today. It's doing marvelous things. Southern Cameroon, Ambazonia can do the same, can do better. And it's up to our youth believing in that future, that there's a better place for them, and not get mingled, not get murdered, not get infested. I'm trying to look up for some words that really will portray what I'm thinking. by what La Republic is showing them, because the youth that are in La Republic du Cameroon, the youth that are there now, do not have the opportunities that will be granted them when Ambazonia is free, completely free to get total control of their territory. So I'm going to be ending the program in a minute. I want to thank everyone for listening to me today. Hopefully, we'll be back next week with a guest speaker. And as we await September 22nd in a few days and October 1st around the corner, let's realize that our forefathers, Dr. Endele, Dr. Foncha, Honorable Joa, even Estimuna, all the powerful legends that have gone before us believe in Southern Cameroon's Ambazonia. Some of them learned of the betrayal after the fact, could not do anything about it. But the fact is that it's up to us that are here and now, it's up to our children to be determined enough to make it a reality in our lifetime. So we want to wish you all a wonderful September 22nd, which is around the corner. I believe it's on Monday. When you think about September 22nd, the youth, the mothers, remember what you did on that day a few years ago, 2017. Remember the vision. Remember why. The why is so important. The why has not changed. The why has not changed. The why will never change. Because the why has not changed and the why will never change, it means that you must remain the cause. You cannot give up. So thank you for being on the horizon with me today. And I wish you have a wonderful weekend and have a great September 22nd, 2025. Thank you so much. And please remember to join the drafts that are all every week. I believe Boyo and Diane may be drafting tomorrow, if I'm right, if I'm not wrong. Support this government of Southern Cameroon, because we are a government with a purpose. We're in exile, but you back at home, you matter the most. We are your voices, because you cannot say what we are saying. You believe in what we are saying, but you cannot utter those words in that land. So we are your voices. Thank you and see you next time. Bye-bye.